All right, hello and welcome to Flashpoint Racing League. I believe the stream is live, though it hasn't gone live for me yet. Uh, and I think it has. And yep, a quick audio check is also successful. So I don't know. Let me just quickly share the stream link wherever I have to probably. Mm. All right, coming back. So welcome to round three. As let me just quickly set my audio controls as well. The engine sounds are just a bit too high for comfort. Uh, and I think this should be fine. As welcome to Spa Francorchamps for the Tuesday tour around in the Flashpoint Racing League, as we have a sprint weekend here for at Belgium, and that would essentially mean we'll have a sprint race, an eight or a 9 lap dash on probably a set of mediums, and then we'll have the final 50% race. As we are midway through qualifying here as well, we see a lot of times being put in by the drivers. Destroyer Sean right now, provisional pole for him, as it doesn't look to me as if he is on another run right now, probably recharging his battery again. As let me also, I will quickly set my controls right as well. All right, and a few drivers, the top two specific, namely in the late 42s, while all the rest of the drivers here are on a set of stars. Troy just has put in a time, and LRE stretch just starting a new lap, and I think there's an Alfa Romeo that is coming to cross the line, and looks like he is also going to start the line from the looks of it, as Snotpin has invalidated his lap. Meanwhile, the other Ferrari now coming up 3 tenths, almost 4 tenths up on his previous best, which would possibly see him displace Tails BR from that P3. But let's see, as now he crosses the line and he goes P3. 4 tenths improvement on his time there, as there is an Alfa Romeo that is coming back to the pits, and also a Red Bull that has also come back to the pits of Destroyer Sean. So they'll come on with a fresh set of tires for their latter part of qualifying. And the game now also gives you different tire compounds, as Mr. Psycho is also coming back into the pits. So we'll probably, I think there's a Williams, but that's also a slow moving Williams, looks from the looks of it. Yeah, Pulcott has invalidated his lap, and there's an Alpine also just right behind him who has also invalidated his lap. Meanwhile, the AlphaTauri of Troy should probably be coming back into the pits, and so would Yagizan and the Alfa Romeo of Sev Lafleur. Pretty interesting nicks there. I hope I've got your nicks pronunciations right as well. As a lot of drivers in the pits right now, just getting their head back in for one last run, and it's a fairly a long out lap here around Spa, and typically a long lap in itself. It's almost close to 140 45s, 1 minute 45s, which is, and sometimes it can get really dull and boring behind the safety car. as we see a Ferrari of Cosworth that's also probably going to come back to the pits. So all these drivers coming back into the pits right now, as Stretch has also invalidated his lap, so he's also would be coming back to the pits as there's a Haas driver. Let's probably see if he is on a. Why can't I find him? He is on an invalidated run. That is, and there is an Aston Martin as well on on an out lap. All right. Oops, it's not been just this breaking all those marker boards there. As a dull part in qualifying these drivers. Oh, that was quite an aggressive corner cut there. Probably he is in a hurry to get things moving for his next round of qualifying. As let's stay on board with GFO Max and see what he is. His qualifying lap time is not truly representative of the pace the driver would have. He's just 10 seconds of drift as now he is now starting his lap start finish straight DRS wide open. It's a short run down to turn one there in the race as well. Drivers can find themselves negotiating the corner rather carefully as now he comes smooth, fairly smooth on the power there. Needs not completely using the width of the track, but definitely trying the shortest track. Now up through Radion he comes as now he approaches the Camel Straight, DRS wide open. Would be interesting to see the kind of speeds he's touching, that is 340 kilometers per hour. But I'm assuming he has just compromised a bit of that straight line speed for that uh, r- run in the now in the middle sector, one of the downhill hairpin corner, easy to lock your tire up, especially the front right. But now he fairly navigates it smoothly as coming across through a fast left-hander. On your just a slight lift off the throttle, and then you really need to line your car up and get the carry the whatever momentum you can out. Now coming to the towards the end of the middle sector of tricky right and left hander, approaching another fast double and right hander. Now this is flat out right from here up till the bus stop chicane, and that the game just does give a purple middle sector, but I'm not sure how true that is actually. But now here as he comes across the bus stop chicane, what kind of time is he putting? GFOG Max, can he, where does he see his car? That is P5, three almost 3.5 tenths away, but that is a good respectable lap time from him as Igor is also going to start a lap for one last time. He's not put in a lap yet, neither has Diego or Stretch, so that's all or nothing for them here. And they really need to nail their lap as much as he can, as Volcott is just warming his tires up. So I think he's probably abandoned his current run. Oh no, he probably has, and he might just go on another run as there's an Alpha Tauri, double Alpha Tauri that's also probably going to start. Rutger is going to start his lap, and so would Troy, I believe. But Troy has just set in a 42.7. I'm not sure, but I think that would be his previous lap. Coming back to Stretch, Stretch is also going to start his lap, so maybe we can come back to him later on. As let's see, the Alfa Romeo of Sevla Flair has also not really improved, so I think probably starting on a lap again, as so would the Ferrari of Godswood Killer is improved. I think no, that is just still his position. I think there's just one last run for him. Yep. As there's an Alfa Romeo that's coming to cross the line, that's also probably starting. Or no, Tails VR has finished. He goes back up to P3 as there's a Red Bull that has just crossed the line or Destroyer Sean. I don't know if that was the spinner, but not very sure as the Aston Martin of ANL Flow has crossed the line, and so would now be the Mercedes of QRT Nick, that is, and he stays P15 as there's a McLaren of Mr. Psycho crossing the line. 7 tenths of an improvement for him, and he goes up to P4, I think, and there's an Aston Martin that has just crossed the line. I'm not sure where who that Aston Martin was, but Rutger now coming to cross the line. Let's see what kind of time he is going to put. There is a Red Bull right behind him. I think that is Igor Jelen. Rutger says P7 as Igor is back into the pit, so no lap time set as there's a Mercedes. I think that was FA Yamaha that crossed the line. P10 for him is another. I think there was a Williams or an Alpine that's crossing, but now there is a Haas and a Ferrari. Haas of switchback stays P11 and Sevilla Flair just displaces the Haas, takes P12 rather, and not P11. So I think that pretty much is the end of qualifying as Stretch was effectively only driver left there, but he chooses to crash his car and give the Alpine a heavy cost in terms of the damages incurred here in the qualifying session. But that is the grid for our sprint race that is going to follow very soon. I'm not sure what the weather is going to be like all throughout, but Destroyer Sean, CPL or CPI Troye occupying the front row there. Never mind, Troy, not really a bottle job. You still have that P2 there and not very pretty far away from Destroyer Sean as both these drivers taking up the front row. God's Word Killer P3, Tails BR P4, Mr. Psycho P5, Yagizan, Rutger, GFO, Gmax, ANL Flow and FAIMA rounding up the top 10. Meanwhile, ANL Exo Wolves, Sevilla Fairs, Switchbacks, Notpin, QRT Nick, and Woolcott, the rest of the only times setters as Diego, Igor Jelen, Stretch, and Gutkovsky are starting at the back of the grid. So let's see what kind of a sprint they have and points for top 8 I believe in the sprint weekend, and let's see how that results in for these drivers who still haven't set a time for them yet as there it is a pretty sunny um, sprint race right now, or a sprint qualifying, whatever you may call it, is formation lap should also be on, and we should pretty much see the entire grid on a set of medium tires. Eight or nine odd laps to be done in this sprint. There can always be a safety car that can come up. Let me just quickly have a look at the settings as if oh no, formation lap is off. So let me head back to the race as we have 5 lights through, and hopefully the game will give me my controls very soon. Yes, and it is lights out, and away we go as the Red Bull gets a mega start ahead against the AlphaTauri as the Ferrari driver tries to take a peek down the inside. A lot of was hustling for positions there behind, but all the drivers fairly navigating the first part and coming up to the top of radio. There's a big train of cars right behind there, but everybody is still maintaining positions as the Red Bull and the AlphaTauri are also involved in a battle. And can the AlphaTauri driver pose any threat at the end of Camel Straight? No, as there is an Aston Martin that is trying to make up positions. Let's see if these drivers can still hold guard. The Alfa Romeo looks to take a peek down the inside, but the defensive guard for the Aston Martin is right there as Switchback has retired from the session. Oh, I don't know where that was, and there are a lot pile of cars that are right behind, caught up in that incident. So, oh, not the best of outcomes there as Gutkovsky and Rutger side by side. I'm not sure Rutger falling a lot of places. I think he's got some kind of damage there as going back up as, as Sevla Flair would also like to make a move on G-Max right now, but is Stretch going to make a move on QRT Nick? These are QRT Nick has a major moment, and I think he also doesn't have his front wing there. QRT Nick just being respectful of the drivers right there, and now coming up to the battle up top. CPI Troy is still holding on within that 1 second of Destroyer Sean, as Godsword Killer is also holding his position. The top four not really changing any kind of positions, but in fact the top six holding ground. But FA Ima has had a good start and he has moved up 3 positions. GMAX still maintaining his position there, as now all these drivers are still pretty much following suit, as there is an intense battle between Flo and Sevlafair. Sevlafair defends the middle of the track, but suddenly I'm not sure if that was movement under braking, but that really threw Flo off guard and he has lost a position. Or was that Flo or was that G Max? I think. Not very sure. I think that was Flo that was involved there. I'm not very sure. Things happened very quickly as Volcott and Exo Wolves of two Williams probably just exchanging their positions there, as Tails PR has had a spin and he finds himself detached from the lead, but he is now hot behind hot snot pain, and both of these drivers make contact, and that will be cooked up tires for both the Alfa Romeo and the Ferrari. So not having the best of times there. Tails BR finds himself up down into P15 and also further down into P16 rather, and now it's only the top three that have still maintained their position, as while others have climbed up a lot of positions, as DRS would also now be enabled. Mr. Psycho right now having the fastest lap of the race, and assuming these drivers are, or not everybody is on a set of mediums, that is. I think Igor just had a moment. He has detached himself to the grid, so he's come back on a set of soft tires. A little bit of incidents happening behind, but Volcott is also on a set of soft tires for these 8 laps, so he has chosen to go on aggressive, as there is a DRS train right now, a top 3, or rather a major DRS train right from top P1 to P12. That is, I believe that's where the brake comes through, but Snopspin is now hot behind LRE Stretch right now. The Alpine driver coming under a lot of attack there, as there is a yellow flag for a slow moving Alpha Tauri of Rutger, I think that is. So not sure what happened, but both the drivers just probably getting track extension warning now. Right behind Puon is just gearbox to front wing both these drivers, as Volcott, or rather Deco has had a major moment coming across through those corners. Now Snotpin and Stretch coming back to this battle. Stretch still holding up his position, but Snotpin is making the most of those track limits now, really is super eager to make the move on Stretch right now. It's a fight for P13. Any positions gained will just help them start higher up for the main race, but here goes Snotpin, and behind is Gutkovsky as well, pretty close. I'm going to go back. The drivers are not really close, very close up ahead, so I'm going to stick to this 4-car battle right now, as Deco has made his move on Wilcott, but finds his car dancing around at the exit of the final corner, and now coming back to this battle for P12, that is LRE Stretch would not have the DRS, and he has 3 cars within 7 tenths of a second behind him, as Kwiatkowski is on the grass and has had a major moment, and Tails BR has also retired from the session. I don't know. I think those drivers went for wide. The game, the stupid game, also doesn't give me a good camera angle for what happened there. I just could see Gatkowski going, running into the grass there. Oh, not the best of outcomes for all these drivers, as there still isn't any kind of a safety car that has come through. All right, that's pretty weird. Okay, but coming back to the battle for P1 now, Destroyer Sean probably getting a track extension penalty. Is it? Yes, he is. So he's accumulated 3 warnings there, and that's not the best of news for him right now. Um, as God's Word Killer is also just sticking to the DRS. Will he get the DRS on this lap? No, he doesn't, which will invite Mr. Sacco to probably take any kind of advantage as he can, as Godsword is slipping from the Alpha Tauri driver ahead. What's going to happen this time around? Does Godsword have enough battery and the straight line speed to be able to keep the McLaren of Mr. Psycho behind, as there's another as the Alpine might also look to get interested, as the Red Bull driver Destroyer Sean having his red light flashing, so not a lot of battery to contend with. And also, I think God's word and Igor has retired from the session. I think that is in the pit lane. Uh, but all these drivers now still following suit. No, the Williams of Exo Wolves, I think that is close on Sevilla Flare. Let's see what happens this time around. Sevilla Flare also close to the cars ahead. Probably just goes a bit too wide there onto Poo, but he still is within a second of the car ahead and will get that DRS assist. Meanwhile, Godsword Killer still has that gap steady to the McLaren behind, and he is also maintaining his gap to the car ahead, but now doesn't have much of battery to contend with, as FA IMA GFO Max. There's another train led by FA IMA and which goes right up to Exo Wolves. ANL Woolcourt and the Alpine of Elari stretch probably heading back into the pits, I think there. But ANL Woolcourt is now losing out on those short tires, but looks for a switchback on LRE stretch. Does he get it? No. Now he all these drivers not been the lead of the driver here will also come under attack from LRE stretch. Is LRE stretch looking for a move here? Snotpin goes to the inside most line, but side by side now both the drivers. The Alpine makes the move well before the braking zone, and he has to now look to claw, just hold on to the Alpine's DRS ahead and protect his position. So NRG Stotman has doesn't have the best of exits through that downhill hairpin, and now he loses his position and probably also his front wing, as Diego just gets a time penalty for track extension, and he is hot behind Woolcourt. The soft runner really holding him back now. The softs really have become super ordinary now. The last 2 laps, Woolcourt might not just have the best of rides for these last 2 laps, but right now Diego is also very pretty hot on him, as Troye has also made a move on Destroyer Sean somewhere, but down through the fast flat out left-hander, and before the bus stop chicane the Haas driver makes the move on Volcott, he needs to really wants to get inroads as much as he can. As Destroyer Sean, I don't know if he had a moment somewhere, is now finds himself a second behind the Alpha Tauri driver and God's Word Killer as well, maintaining his position as not been loses another position. I think to QRT, Nick and Rutger is just taking the weirdest of entries to the pit lanes, and I think he's going to probably retire from the session or go for yep, he is, as it was an AlphaTauri sandwich for the entire grid. Now Rutger choosing to retire. But are there any kind of moves coming? There is a hot battle for P6 right now if drivers can make any kind of inroads, as Sevla Fair is very close to ANL flow. The Aston Martin's running in formation right now. Are there any kind of position swapping that is going to happen as flow, as Sevla Fair is just sticking glued to the Aston Martin ahead, and it's all about, I think this would now, Troy would definitely be starting the final lap of the race, as this would be the Camel State would be the effective option for them, as the Alfa Romeo Stella takes a peek down the inside of at bus stop chicken, side by side. Both these drivers, they have the DRS. Sevla Frere still holding on to the inside, tries to break late, but Equate Flo still manages to hold on to that position and is still within the DRS of the driver ahead, which will give him the assist that he needs. Meanwhile, Destroyer Sean has also clawed in a lot of space ahead, as side by side go GFO Max and FAIMA, and FAIMA uses that position to GFO G Max, and I think there were a lot of drivers that were going side by side up ahead as well, but still holding those positions, as GFO Max has had a major moment, and now the Aston Martin driver was just facing the other side of the track, now has got his directions right, and now in the final lap of the race we are. Destroyer destroyer Sean with that time penalty would demote him further down the order, as there are a lot of drivers pretty close to his near, as QRT Nick, oh, has not been probably have come together now. It's not been not having the best of sprints, as if let me see if there is, I don't think there is any kind of a move coming, as Troy now comes to wind up and see the checkered flag for the sprint race, followed by Destroyer Sean in P3. God's Word Killer still P2 on track, P2 for Destroyer Sean. God's Word Killer steals it from him, and so does Psycho ALB, due owing to the Red Bull driver's 3-second time penalty. Yagizan in P5, FAIMA in P6, Flo P7, Exovos, Sevla Fair, and Exovos rather rounding up the points finishers, as there are a lot of other position gainers in the likes of LRE Stretch, who now will start at P11, while he was down at P20, as QRT Nick just getting a hold of his car there, as Ketkowski has just left the session. So hopefully he can try to join back, as it was pretty close between these drivers. And let's see what the weather is like for the main race. 22 laps around Spa-Francorchamps. These would be 22 long laps. Hopefully we don't see a lot of incidents or safety cars, but if this field gets too spaced out, I think it's good to probably get the safety car to get the whole field back up. Meanwhile, Troy, God's Word Killer, Psycho ALB, Destroyer Sean, Yagizan, FAIMA, ANL Flow, and Exo Wolves, the point scorers from this sprint: Sevilla Fled, GFO Max, Stretch, Digo, ANL Woolcott, Nick, Snotpin, Rudger, Rudger, and Igor not having the best of races, and so would K. Gatkowski. As Tails BR with his initial incident also would want to make his way back up the field and switch back, rounding up that grid order for the race. And let's see what the weather is like. Oh, it is sunny. A sunny afternoon, Sunday afternoon. Well, technically a Tuesday evening, but a Sunday sunny afternoon here at Belgium. If you see the race weekend calendar, speak accordingly speaking. But the formation lap is switched off yet again. So this time Troye would be occupying that P1 with, I think it was Mr. Psycho in P2. Um, oh no, Godsword Killer in P2, the Ferrari driver, Mr. Psycho in P3, and the Red Bull in P4, and there's an Alpine in P5, if I'm not mistaken. I think that is Yagizan. So let's see what kind of starts these drivers get. And P6 FAIMA as well. He's made up a few positions, had a good start. Uh, okay, the countdown is over as we have the five lights there and lights out, and away we go. A decent start for a good start for the Alpha Tauri. Meanwhile, a brilliant start for the Mercedes driver who finds himself up in P3. I think that is FAIMA. They're right behind as Psycho ALB also losing a few positions, not having the best of starts, and is followed hot behind the Alpine driver. And I think there is a Williams of Exo Wolves also involved. A switchback has retired from the session, and that he probably didn't have the best of exits through the chemistry as side by side go the Aston Martin and the Williams. I assume that is Exo Wolves and Flo, but I'm not very sure. But it is a double attack from the Aston Martin right there as going back. Diego is also pretty hot on this battle as there is all these drivers right now fairly cleanly navigate the right coming up to the end of the middle sector as going back up. Troye has maintained a 7/10 gap to the Ferrari driver of God's Word Killer behind. Meanwhile, F.A. Yama with a brilliant start again finds himself up in P3. Destroyer Sean, Psycho ALB also not having the best of starts there, but now can look to make their moves back up on the field as Tails BR and ANL Woolcott going side by side. Tails BR making that move around the outside, and also there is another McLaren of Kwiatkowski that is involved and wants to make any kind of noise. A bit of aji-baji between the drivers. The Red Bull of Igor also looking to get interested. There are these. Is it a three-wide moment? No, the Williams of Woolcott decides to back off, and right now, but Ketkowski gets a brilliant exit. Now these drivers now approaching the top of Radion. Do they arrange themselves before they head side by side? Almost side by side go both the Williams and the Red Bull, but and Stretch has had a major moment coming up to the top of Radion, and now what brilliant racing between these drivers as QRT Nick has lost a position to Snotpin and he is will also come under attack from Tails BR right there, right as Snotpin will now look to make any kind of moves as he can as Igor and ANL Woolcott. There is a yellow flag for Getkowski, so not sure what happened to him over there. As Stretch now gets a time penalty in lap 2 of the race, and that is fairly a pretty early time penalty to come through. But Sevilla Flair and the Haas of Diego pretty close now, coming across the fast right hander. Oh, Diego not having the best of rides to there, and which invites Sevilla Flair, who makes the move before the bus stop chicane, and now Klein moves, sees himself up in P2, P10, defends the middle of the track against any kind of late braking moves from the Haas driver, but the Haas driver gets a brilliant exit out of that corner. I think both are on the hard tires, and we haven't had a look at the tire situation for these drivers as the race is still pretty hot and DRS would now be enabled, but Troy has pulled off from more than a second from the driver behind FA. I'm almost a second behind the Ferrari, but he doesn't have a battery, a lot of battery to contend with. He does have the DRS for this lap as Yagi-san and the Aston Martin. I'm not sure, do they make contact or something happened between the two, but these drivers are fairly pretty close for comfort. Flo just sticking to the back of the Alpine there as Igor has now made a move on QRT Nick, who is coming under attack from ANL Woolcott as well. Nick not having the best of races so far, but Woolcott, I think Woolcott just had a bit of a moment there at the right before Puon, I believe, and right now Stretch is also right hot on his tail, but Rutger has had a moment coming close to that end of the final sector, or rather the middle sector, and has lost that position as Stretch has also made a move on ANL Woolcott. So not sure what happened there, but both the drivers on hard tires right now is going back up. Are there any kind of moves coming? Exo Wolves and Sevilla Flair, these two drivers have been at it for quite a part of the race so far, and right now Exo Wolf sticking behind Sevilla Flair, who will also get the DRS assist from the car ahead. Meanwhile, Yagizan is also pretty close to Mr. Psycho, who has detached himself from the top four and now pulls tries to defend the inside, but that overspeed for the Alpine driver with the DRS plus ERS assist makes him make the move enables him to make the move fairly before the braking zone. But can Psycho ALB come back at him next lap, as there is an interesting, the Alpine of Yagizan is rather the lead of this DRS train in P5, which goes down up to P15, and Snotpin also pretty close to Igor Jalan. Would there be a move coming here for Igor? We're about to find out, or rather for Snotpin, but nothing doing so far. I think both the drivers getting considerable similar drives, but who can carry more momentum across this fast double right-hander? I think the both these drivers pretty much having that similar kind of pace, but has Igor detached himself from the DRS? No, he hasn't, so he would get the DRS assist from Tails BR, and who would potentially be under attack at this Camel Straight now coming into lap 5 of this race, which doesn't seem to settle down for the moment, as Troy in the AlphaTauri in the lead of the race has pulled off 1.6 seconds behind, and so has Ferrari over the Mercedes, who is probably coming under attack. He does, but he still holds on to that position, as Yagizan also holds on to his position, as no moves majorly coming, and Tails BR would also be eager to attach himself to the longer train ahead as QRT Nick and LRE Stretch are also involved in a battle, and there is a yellow flag for an AlphaTauri of Rutger. I think Rutger not having the best of the races, and the entire grid is yet again in an AlphaTauri sandwich. I think that's not sure if that's how things started, but yep, we did have that momentarily during the sprint race as Flo pretty close to Psycho ALB and Destroyer Sean also close to FAIMA whose light is flashing but seems to have that extra bit of straight line speed there as the Red Bull just gets a bit squirrely at the exit of the final corner and is finds also finds himself just a bit away from the DRS, but he would look to pull himself back within that 1 second. Is he below 1 second at that detection line? I guess he did manage to get, but we'll surely find out. Does he have the DRS? I think he does have the DRS on Destroyer Sean, yes, but one driver who doesn't is Yagizan in the Alpine, and Mr. Psycho showing a letter of intent there, but still, or rather, still holding back to the Alpine, who just is doing everything he can to defend his position as the Tails BR, the Alfa Romeo of Tails BR, has had a movement and now is in the back at the back of the grid. Oh, not sure what happened there, but uh, the downspit of oversteer probably getting a bit too early on the throttle has made him lose those positions as FA Aima, or rather Destroyer Sean is now closer than ever to FA Aima, and I don't see his light flashing, and he definitely has more than half his tank filled up on his ERS. So this is a move coming soon. Those hearts really having charged up and almost kisses the rears of the Mercedes, but has to hold back now because of which just gets a bit compromised on the exit, but nonetheless has that DRS assist and now glues himself to the back gearbox of the Mercedes of FAIMA, who is probably might just lose this P3 or the final podium position as um, Destroyer Sean gets a brilliant exit through, or rather, brilliant run up through to the top of Radion and down at the end of Camel Straight and makes the move easy as Yagizan is still holding guard and leading the train that is right behind him. The question would be, can he make any kind of inroads onto FAIMA? Those hard tires should have probably switched on very well by now, and let's see if that gap can come down as Gatkowski is also pretty close to QRT Nick right now. Gatkowski not having the best of starts but is looking to claw his way back, gets a brilliant run down through those sequence of corners and makes his move at Puon. Not a place where usually you see a move coming, but he did get a brilliant drive, and the driver really had to yield that position to Gatkowski, who's on a charge right now, trying to claw his way back up the field as much as he can. He would definitely hope for a safety car to make things interesting for him. And now in these medium tires. But let's see what happens as Troy is in a race of his own right now, as a 3 second gap to the medium runner right behind him. Destroyer Sean making inroads, broken away from the DRS of from the 1 second of FAIMA. So FAIMA really having a bit of time there as the two Aston Martins are also involved in a battle flow defending the inside of the track, but has to give way to his teammate and wouldn't want to get himself involved in an incident there, as now both these Aston Martins can play a team game as ANL Woolcott just loses the position to Tails BR there, as there's a yellow flag and Flo has retired from the session. Oh, not the best of drives did he get, and is that a safety car? That looks like a virtual safety car. Oh my god, the commentator's curse being very real there, as just as I said, the Alpha Aston Martins can play a team game. One of them is just out of the race. Um, as the race has been neutralized momentarily, drivers just maintaining their deltas right now. As Troy has decided to box, and so has Godsword Killer, so Destroy Sean continuing on those hard tires. I believe the medium runners, this should be a good time for the medium runners to pit, and hopefully the VSC is as long as they would like for it to be, as drive through penalty for Igor for speeding under the VSC, so he is not able to maintain his delta, as now there it's we are under green flag racing, so that is a brilliant pit stop. Oh, and there was a driver facing the wrong direction. I think that was an Aston Martin, was it, of GFO G Max, that was just facing the wrong direction there. As Troy, after that, after having boxed, just finds himself at P4 and make that net P1 yet again, because those hard runners still have to box, and he still finds himself ahead of a couple of hard runners, so that's pretty neatly positioned. His race is very neatly positioned to see himself find to see himself to to see the checkered flag is what I mean. I'm just losing all my words here, as Exo Wolves is also now close to the Alfa Romeo behind, as Rutger now gets a 3 second time penalty for corner cutting, and TSBR is also pretty close on FAIMA, who also decided to box for a set of hard tires right now in P9, but there are 5-6 odd drivers ahead of him who still have to box. But meanwhile, Gutkowski has continued on those set of mediums. Troy making inroads on Diego, probably a move coming in the next few laps, maybe not yet. We'll just find out, as Tails BR is also pretty close to FAIMA, but he will get the DRS assist from Getkowski, who would get the DRS from LRE Stretch, who might just come under attack, and as he also has a major moment coming out of the exit of turn 1, and Getkowski is now under 3 tenths behind, as oh, that was just probably my lag that came through, as Diego Troye has made a move on this lap itself on Diego, and the two Ferraris are now in formation. I think there'll be team orders on both the drivers on different strategy there, as Getkowski has just left the session. So probably a game crash moment for him, as there are drivers going side by side, the Aston Martin and the Mercedes of Max and QRT Nick, as the AI of Gutkowski just losing all those positions. But FA Ima has made a move down through Puon on LRE Stretch as well, and he is losing on position to Tails BR as well. Side by side go both the drivers. I think Tails BR just had a bit of a moment and had to counter steer his car so that he doesn't find himself hitting the walls, and he would live to fight another day from LRE stretch and would still want to make that position as quickly as he can, as there's a yellow flag for a slow moving AlphaTauri of Rutger, I think that is, and he's not having, definitely not having the best of races, as the Alpine of Tailspear has, or rather the Alpine of LRE stretch gets out of shape from that final corner and loses that position to the Alfa Romeo of Tails DR, but he would still get the DRS now if he can look to make any kind of redemption for his position there, as there is a long DRS train that's going on. There's no drivers. Destroyer Sean 5 seconds ahead as Mr. Psycho makes a move on the Aston Martin of Max and sees himself up in P11 now, as LRE stretch now still holding behind. Whereas QRT Nick has lost a position to Sev Lafleur as well. I think there was a moment for him, as so has not been found himself in a moment which now sees him without a front wing as well. So that's going to be a long ride down to the pit lane, as Mr. Psycho is also pretty close on 10 lap old tires of Woolcourt. So Woolcourt definitely struggling for a bit of pace there as against those fresh mediums. And Mr. Psycho, can he make a move down at the bus stop chicane on the Williams driver? Side by side they go down on through this run, and Woolcourt probably just cedes the position at the moment. He knows this is not his battle to pick. The driver is definitely way faster than him, but he would get the DRS, and Woolcourt has gone into the pits. So, yep, though that is pretty much time for these hard runners who would look to come back into the pits for a mandatory tire change and a fresh set of mediums, which these drivers have done, while there are a few drivers who are still to work, and probably we hoping for a safety car to come out, as the field up front has bunched out quite a lot. Mr. Psycho, the driver closest, and a battle for P8 that's currently between three drivers, as Gatkowski makes a move on Woolcourt. So Witkowski on those fresh hard tires against Woolcourt's fresher mediums, but those mediums still wouldn't have come up to the temperatures he would have liked, as he's just weaving just a bit down that straight, tiny straight, to get a bit of temperatures on his front tires, because he is under attack from Rutger behind, as well as now Mr. Psycho ALB is now closer than ever to the Alpine driver ahead. The only probably this battle again for P8, the only closest battle right now that we have, but Gmax also finds himself a bit away from Mr. Psycho. Mr. Psycho is really putting the tempo up now. He clears, he's now a second clear of Gmax, and now the Alpine of Stretch is back into the pits, so that's another position gain for Mr. Psycho, and Tails BR, who hasn't pitted again, would be uh, the next target for Mr. Psycho ALB, and a second ahead is FAIMA, who is on fresher hard compound there. SQRT Nick is now just at the back of the grid after his pit stop as well. Now coming on a set of hard tires. Interesting. So if he's run 13 laps on those mediums, but yep, Igor also in the pits after having done 5 laps on those softs, so not having the best of races. The Red Bull driver finds himself at the back of the grid, as now we have a Red Bull sandwich now from an Alpha Tauri sandwich. Earlier to a Red Bull sandwich where between Destroyer Sean and Igor, but hopefully he shouldn't get lapped as Destroyer Sean has had a major moment coming out and has he beached his car? He definitely hasn't beached his car, but he definitely has decided to leave the session having had a horrible moment, so that Red Bull sandwich is also not the meal for dinner anymore. As Sevilla Flair and the Aston Martin of GFO Max side by side through that fast left-hander, Sevilla Flair running wide, probably getting a track extension warning, but still holds his position to the Aston Martin behind. But he will get the DRS. Can he line himself up with a brilliant exit through turn one? We're about to find out. He's closer than ever now, but on those fresher mediums, Sevilla Fair does get a better exit than G Max, and I think this he might just hold on to his place as there are positions being swapped right behind, but I think those are drivers coming out of the pits. But can GFO Max make any kind of move on the Alfa Romeo? No, is the answer. Yes, but Gatkowski is very close to Tails Beard and makes the move on him. And the Alpine of LR Stretch also wants to leverage that position. Alfa Romeo of Tails Beard having just come out of the pits, not having or rather having a lot of understeer as a consequence of not having temperatures on his tires. But hopefully that should those tires should come back to him towards the end of this sector, as there's a yellow flag for a slower moving Ferrari off snot pin, and he probably has had just a spin and not. His car looks intact, though he does have a bit of understeer, as LRE Stretch has also gone for a ride around the gravel, and there was another yellow flag for a driver ahead. But I think NRG Stott Pit has had another moment, and there are a few drivers in the pits, namely Yagizan, having done 14 or 15 odd laps on those hard tires, will lose a lot of position now, find himself probably up at P6. At P5 he's going to come very close to Sevilla Flair, is right behind him on fresh set of medium, so expect that gap to close in pretty soon on the next couple of laps, as there are two slow moving cars, I think, or is it just one? No, there is just one slow moving car off snot pin, and he is pretty close to getting lapped as he finds himself in the gravel yet again. I'm assuming he's just going to go to dash back to the pits and retire from the session, as almost being very close to being lapped, as the top two from the race start are now back, are the your top two again. FA Ima having that brilliant start isn't still in P3, but has some penalties to his name, but so does the McLaren of Mr. Psycho right behind. Sevilla Flair is just a bit behind, but Mr. Psycho has not been has retired. Think in the pits, that is pretty sure. Yep, that's a premature end to his race, as coming back to the battle for P3. Just having a look at the penalties, FAIMA with 6 seconds of penalties, while Mr. Psycho just has 3 seconds of those penalties. So FAIMA be might just lose more positions than just one to Mr. Psycho, but Psycho would want to take that position on the track. He's less than a second behind him now at the detection point. That gap is closing in big time, as hard tires against the medium tires, I think, or both the drivers on the medium set, but getting the DRS advantage and carrying that momentum up through Radion. And now Pisto Psycho ALB is up in P3, as Yagizan has also made a move on Sevilla flares. Those medium tires would now have just come alive for the Alpine driver, as Gatkowski, now close to tails BR, would probably look to line himself up in the next few laps. As FA Haima would look to stick as close uh, to the McLaren as he can, but he is on a hard set of tires, so the difference of tires and the grip advantage for that McLaren helping him on his climb through Radion up to the Camel Straight in the previous lap, but Sevilla flare, and there is a yellow flag for a slow moving Mercedes of QRT. Nick had a moment there as FAIMA is still within a second and gets that DRS, but Yakizen has lost that position to Sevilla Fair for some reason. I think he just had a bit of a moment at the exit of the final corner, but now is 3 tenths behind the Alfa Romeo on fresher rubber, though on the same set tire compound. But he gets a brilliant drive through Rouge now as makes the move fairly well before the braking zone, as Digo also is making a move on Exo Wolves on those fresh medium tires. Exo Wolves not having the best of grips there, and all these medium runners have suddenly found a lot of pace towards the latter part of the race and making as many moves as they can. But Exo Wolves, can he stick close to Tigor, is losing a bit of time, but FAIMA is somehow still managing to hold on to Mr. Psycho for the moment, but he is now dropped off by away from the and as now coming back. So it's a dynamic movement between the deltas of these two drivers. But FAIMA right now would lose that position to Yagi Zen, who doesn't have any kind of penalties to his name, and Sevilla Flair would also be trying to string along with him as much as he can and get the DRS and pull as close as possible to FAIMA on those hard tires. But we just have 4 laps to go. FAIMA, does he have? Will he get the DRS? If he gets away from that DRS, that might not just be the best of news. I think he did manage to pull himself within a second at that detection line, but we're about to find out. As no, he hasn't, or he has. I think he has, so he does get the DRS. So, meanwhile, Yagizan also closing in time on the Mercedes up ahead, and Sevilla Flair sticking on to him while there is a move. No, actually, Radka Destroyer Sean is in the pits, but ANL Woolcott has lost a position to G Max on the fresher medium, who's on fresher medium tires, and is will look to make any kind of inroads as he can for the final points position, which is now with currently with Gatkowski, and there might be a lot of shuffling of positions in the midfield and up front, as well as there's a yellow flag for a slow moving Alpine, is it? Yup, that is LRC Stretch in the Alpine, who's taken a trip to the walls, but FAIMA somehow is still holding on with Mr. Psycho ALB, which will be good news for him because he needs that DRS so that he can try be away from. Oh, the Alfa Romeo of Sevilla Flair having a major moment, and he finds himself away from the DRS of the Alpine ahead, which is not going to be Good news for him if he was looking to make any kind of position on FAIMA, owing to those time penalties. I'm assuming Sevilla Flair just has. Uh, oh no, he also has 6 seconds of penalties, so that's all. The equation stays the same for both these drivers as now